Hello, I'm Ellen Bince, coming today from Wheaton, Illinois, in the USA. Welcome to Impact, a podcast about how we can each bring about real change in the world and getting practical in making that happen.
And hello, I'm Clive Johnson, coming today from the village of East Hoathly, which is in East Sussex in the UK. A special welcome if you're listening for the first time, and a big thank you to our new subscribers. Each week, we look at one aspect of how we can connect our hearts to offer healing for others with our collective intention, prayers, and meditation, and go behind the headlines of a critical happening in our world that needs our attention right now.
In today's episode, we take one of these regular deep dives to more fully understand and tune in with something many of us may know only a little about and see where we might hone in with our prayers and intentions. And as we record, it's January 10th, 2025.
Wow. Brand new year and Happy New Year, I think is in order still, since this is I believe, our first episode of the new year.
It might be. And side note, today is my parents' 72nd wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
How about that?
Wow. Well, many congratulations. 72nd.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
72nd. Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
I don't know anything about, I think once you get beyond gold and diamond anniversaries, I have no idea what.
Yes, platinum, the world, whatever you want. I don't know.
Yeah, you can only go so far, can't you, really?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's really, really wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's a brand new year, at least in the Gregorian calendar, Global Healing Response, the wonderful initiative started by Ellen, over 20 years ago now, isn't it?
20 years this year.
20 years, yeah. Give special attention to a specific pressing need where our concerted efforts in prayer and intention holding are needed to bring about a major positive change. So, as always, on the Global Healing Response website in the next few days, you'll find some wonderful resources, particularly if you are planning a group event. So this might be something like a labyrinth walk, or it might be a circle that you bring together with others of like mind. There will be some suggested helpful reflections there and guidance, perhaps, that you might want to draw upon. Last year, as regular listeners probably will recall, the focus was on our planet. And we looked in that wonderful episode last time at some great strides that have been taken over the last year on the various themes, not getting complacent there. And this year, a really important theme, which is going to be our focus today, in terms of introducing this theme at least, Global Healing Response, encouraging us to embrace authenticity as a vital theme for our focus throughout the year. So today we'll say a little bit about what this might include and why it seems to be especially important to have our attention at this moment. So Ellen, as creator of Global Healing Response, can you say a little bit about what inspired you to choose this theme for this year?
Yeah, I spend time in the fall and winter considering what the theme for the next year should be. And I listen to what's happening in the world, and I listen to my guides and to other people and see what's bubbling up. And I had heard the statistic that authenticity is 4,000 times stronger than the vibration of love. Now,
Wow.
in doing research, I found out there's no substantiation for that scientifically. I also read it's 400, it's 4 times. I heard, I couldn't find anything specific. But the reason that authenticity is more powerful than love is because in order to be truly authentic, your heart has to be open. And that makes your energy more powerful. And I think we know that authenticity this year might not have been on the rise. It might have been on the decline. And it's something that we can remind each other and ourselves of. And Clive, I want to publicly thank you for the research that you did on authenticity and how you brought many points to light for me as I researched this. Your help was invaluable. And in confirming that authenticity needs to be considered internally and externally in the world, in our political systems, in our societies. It's not just something that we embody. We can look for it outside too.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of how I set up the Global Healing GHR is what we call it for the year, for each quarter, to first focus inward and then to focus outward. You know, one of my taglines in life is powerful change can happen peacefully. And in the global healing response, you know, never underestimate the power of unified energy and the labyrinth in what we've been using in the past 20 years. But I also feel like before there's peace on earth, we have to heal each other.
Yes.
And we have to be there for each other in order to heal. I mean, yes, we're responsible for our own healing, but sometimes it requires more than one person to heal yourself. A forgiveness, a listening, an understanding before you feel healed. And I think in order
challenging, doesn't it, when you sound out with someone else about your own response to what matters, your own values, or really come to consider. Because it's so easy to have the head knowledge to know, well, I think this way, and I read all the books and listen to my favorite spiritual teachers, and but actually to put into practice, to, as you say, really embody internally and then to make that external. That is
and in order to heal each other, I think we have to be authentic, or else we'll get defensive, and we'll, as we've created the quarters, there are 4 different words that I've come up with that maybe will trigger people to embody this, and it will be helpful for each other.
The first one of these, groundedness, we're going to be taking a look at, I think, very soon, because obviously that's for this quarter. So this sort of starting point that we have. And yes, I really appreciated it when you mentioned that this was a theme that was bubbling up some time ago. And one way that sometimes I reflect on these things is to go away and write an essay to myself. What does it mean to me? And if you're writing it yourself, not necessarily thinking you're going to publish it, you can be, there's no excuse for not being fully honest. But it was really quite revealing, I think, when I did that. When I started, letting things flow and starting to think about, well, yes, this connection with healing, this connection with being centered, this connection with everything we do around intention. It's such a crucial foundation.
It makes it all more powerful.
Yes. And it's something this year, particularly where we're not just looking at a focus on the external, we are looking at ourselves, how we can grow and develop as well. And that's got to be very, very key, I think.
I think it's going to be exciting and worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely. Challenging at times, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, but definitely very worthwhile.
No one said it would be easy. No one said any of this would be easy.
No. So before we go too much further, we should really ask this fundamental question: what does authenticity actually mean? So we probably know when we refer to that word, it encompasses the idea of being true to ourselves, expressing what we genuinely feel, what we genuinely think, touching on what are often called our core values. It involves aligning our internal experience with the external expression and actions and things we say. However, when we started to look into this, it's probably a little bit more complex than this simple definition might suggest. So there are a number of key aspects that we might pull out. Firstly, authenticity means having a deep understanding of our own personality, values, and beliefs. And perhaps with that, we might even say our life story, what we've brought into this life, and then acting in accordance with these. This involves maintaining congruence between our internal world and what we're expressing externally, even as our experiences and emotions change over time. Being authentic often requires courage to show up as our true self including revealing our vulnerabilities and imperfections. And my goodness, that is so powerful when you're able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And stripping off the masks that we often hide behind. At times, this may mean risking ridicule or alienation, or suffering discrimination or exclusion from groups that we hold dear. Yet, if we are sincere about living authentically, we must pursue our passions and stand by our convictions, even in the face of criticism or social pressure to conform. And I think this is the real test, isn't it? When we imagine what would it be like to be excluded, from our family, for example, or from our employment, or, from a group of friends, because we come out with a particular view or, hold tight to a way of being. It's a test a lot of us aren't necessarily put to, I think.
Well, exactly. And sometimes the fear of that is more powerful than what actually happens when you do it.
Yes.
And if you need motivation, sometimes when you do this, other people are watching you and say thank you because they're thinking the same thing, but they don't have the courage to say it. So,
and I'm about this thing around vulnerability. I was in a healing circle very recently, largely with people I don't know. We came together for a series of 8 sessions. It was a Power of 8 type group focused on each individual bringing a healing need. And really a part of the requirement, if you like, if you are to benefit yourself from this, is to allow yourself to be vulnerable in a group that hopefully you can trust pretty quickly. But, as I say, people that just come together very, very quickly. And I was aware that just how powerful being vulnerable is. People declaring who they are and perhaps saying a little bit about their story, their backgrounds, their fears, and so on, and feeling safe to be able to do that in that kind of group. It seems to unlock something that allows a healing to take place.
Absolutely. And that takes faith, faith in those people. And it's a leap of faith sometimes.
Yes. So maybe a starting point, if you're one of those that's fearful about really opening up, is to see if you can hook in with a group such as that.
Right. And maybe in the show notes, we can put a link to Lynn McTaggart's book, The Power of 8, so they can know what we're talking about with that circle.
Of course. Yes.
Right. So those who are authentic prioritize truthfulness and integrity in their interactions, including admitting mistakes and taking responsibility for their actions. Key. Providing honest feedback, even when it's difficult. Keeping promises and commitments. And speaking the truth, even in challenging circumstances. And I think if you wrap all these up, the challenge can be to do it with grace and sometimes gentleness. It requires a little gentleness, but it still means doing it.
Yes.
Right?
It does. And I mean, some of these things, I think, like admitting mistakes.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not untypical of many people that can find that really quite hard, actually. There's the first tendency usually is to be defensive.
Yes.
Trying
yes.
to so really being mindful around, well, is this a situation where I did get this wrong?
Well, sometimes it's one step further, even not admitting the mistake, but even realizing, could I be the mistake? Like, you're so defensive, you can't even see.
Yes.
That you've made the mistake.
And you're projecting too much onto the other person.
Yes, you're projecting. Yes, that's where the groundedness and the vulnerability comes in play. So people who are authentic are able to accept themselves and be willing to ask for help when needed. This can be very difficult sometimes too. And this doesn't mean expressing every thought without a filter. For heaven's sake, please don't. But rather, it involves being ever mindful of the impact of our words and actions on others, and maintaining boundaries and respecting others' perspectives. It very often means being an activist, but ensuring that we do so, as I said, with compassion and respect. It's like walking a tightrope sometimes, isn't it?
And I think this thing around activism is something that it's a question that's opened up for me as a result of really considering this question of authenticity. But perhaps we'll come back to that some other time.
Absolutely. And just, as Legacy Labyrinth Project, I'm the director of contemplative labyrinth activism. So let me just put a note in here that activism isn't always violence or, screaming. There is contemplative, sacred activism too.
Yes. Yes. It's not all about being on the streets either. And
right.
Lobbying.
Powerful change can happen peacefully.
Yep. So in what areas is authenticity important at a social and global level? Authenticity, as we said at the beginning, obviously plays a crucial role in various areas at both a society and at a global level, both of which will fall into our focus this year, especially, I imagine, Ella, as we go more into that period of looking at the external.
Mm-hmm.
It's all too easy, of course, to see what the opposite of authentic leadership might bring about. Abuse of power, dodging scrutiny about malpractices, and spin doctoring the truth where commercial or reputational objectives have priority are among the ugly consequences that can take its place. One obvious area where authenticity is vital concerns businesses and their brands in building customer trust, loyalty, and credibility. So authentic brands are perceived generally as being genuine and transparent. And that creates meaningful connections with consumers who seek alignment with their own values and aspirations. So where our quest for holding intention is concerned, we might apply the notion of branding in the sense of reliability to news media and the publicity approaches of governments, institutions, and corporate entities. The PR press releases and so on that they put out. We aim to discern which really hold true to such promises as you'll often hear when there's been an inquiry, we will learn lessons when gross errors go public, and what kind of cultures they build reputations for in such things as acting quickly against inequality and prejudice and not punishing ethically driven whistleblowers who bring injustices to light. Now, actually, this week in the UK, there's been quite a very high-profile story that I think could be added to this list as well as another, in generalizing. The specific story concerned a call for a new inquiry into grooming of children that took place in various cities, particularly in the north of England, many years ago now. There've actually been a number of inquiries, and one very esteemed one concluded recently. The UK government wants to get on implementing actions and doesn't want another inquiry. And of course, some mail arrive, not for me, because I'm house sitting, but I don't think it's for me. But the opposition are saying, well, we need another inquiry. And really the excuse there is this could be just delaying taking action. So I think this might be another area where, again, activism needs to play its part, actually getting on and implementing lessons, not just coming out with sound bites and having inquiries.
Requires wisdom, right?
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we see another area where authenticity matters in leadership, like you're saying, and the workplace. Authentic leaders model genuineness for others, earning trust and loyalty from team members. In workplace cultures where authenticity is taken seriously, open discussions of diverse viewpoints, problem solving, and engagement are encouraged, leading to more thoughtful and genuine results from group efforts. Crucially, individuals can feel a part of the team they work with and so be empowered and edified rather than being mere hands on deck.
Mm.
And there's so many studies that prove how effective this is when people feel that they're purposeful and part of solutions instead of just being told what to do. It's kind of common sense, a little bit of common sense. In social interactions too, authenticity fosters deeper, more rewarding relationships that are built upon truth and genuine self-expression. It allows individuals to navigate sincerity and performance in various social contexts, balancing self-expression with adherence to social norms. And this clearly matters within families and among neighbors and within communities. It matters where engaging in social debate is concerned, and such as where ideological differences on such things as abortion and attitudes toward welcoming immigrants often lead to polarized and toxic reactions, especially in the largely unregulated world of social media, as we found even more this week as Meta, and I don't know, is X included in that too, has decided to not fact check things and
I think X
authenticity.
already has this policy, doesn't it,
Yeah.
of community vetting or whatever they call it, but not doing independent checking. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll have to pay even more attention on social media to either speak our truth or just watch for what's, the inaccurate things. And the same is true in the words of many politicians and media reporting, as false claims, bad mouthing of opponents, and even criminal behavior of some of those who yield power and influence have become accepted and readily forgiven by a large number of our fellow citizens.
We've obviously seen that all too clearly in recent years.
We've seen that all too clearly, yes.
I'm thinking of UK news again this week. There's some very live examples of this.
Oh, I think I could speak for probably an hour in the US, right?
Yeah, it's almost every day.
Right.
So taking these very live and pressing matters together, we can see why authenticity is essential in building ethical societies in which the highest good of all is valued. Organizations, politicians, police forces, and others who place authenticity at their heart signify a genuine commitment to making a difference in society, going beyond the surface level actions and token gestures. By embracing authenticity, individuals, organizations, and societies can foster trust, encourage genuine self-expression, and a sense of safety and grounding, and create more meaningful connections in the face of an increasingly polarized and uncertain world. This doesn't mean that there won't be differences of view, of course, on how society should move forward, nor disagreement about policies and ideologies. However, where individuals and organizations that have influence in the public domain speak their truth, others may at least be able to vote, make their purchases, and know where to align their loyalties based on their own values and beliefs. Trust in politics might then be re-established where it's been broken. A clear grounding for building social cohesion may be laid down, even if not all may agree on the path being taken. And grounding is a crucial priority for authenticity. As we said, we'll be considering this in a forthcoming episode to tie in with this quarter's theme for GHR.
Yes. So why might our own resolve to live authentically matter in terms of our contribution to what happens in society? It's also core to being effective in intention holding, since it requires us to align our thoughts, actions, and values, or resonate in tune with what we truly believe and desire. This is, of course, the foundation for authentic prayer and intention holding, what we do each week. Yet it also yields greater inner peace and positive emotion, which contribute to the supportive vibe that we put out into the world. When we are authentic, we instill a sense of trust in others, and they may in turn perceive our words and actions as being sincere and may be inspired by what we say and our model of honesty and show courage and conviction.
However, staying true to our core values and having the courage to be ourselves with our imperfections and everything isn't as straightforward as many of us might believe. Many of us may be rarely put to the test to know whether we will stay true to the values, as we were saying earlier, we tell ourselves we hold dear. The famous Milgram experiments of the 1960s showed all too clearly how susceptible many people are to conforming to instructions from someone in authority, even when this means causing harm to another. Similarly, there were conspicuously few conscientious objectors in Nazi Germany who put their own lives at risk for the sake of what they believed. There were a notable few, of course, who did. The majority did not. Both are testament to the real vulnerability that comes to the fore for most of us when being asked to lay our cards on the table. It's all too easy to think that we would be among the few who would stay firm in such dire circumstances. Perhaps you would. Perhaps I might too. But unless we are put to the test, few of us may know the limit of our conviction. At a time when in some parts of the world long accepted freedoms are being challenged, those of us who do feel inspired to speak out on our truth must be ready to have courage to put our heads above the parapet. Authenticity is becoming entwined with activism, as we were saying earlier. The word that stirs within us needs to flow beyond bold posts on social media and conversations with others who support our cause into the things that we proactively and often very publicly do.
As you were saying, if we're grounded when we do this and we speak our truth and it flows, we'll be less likely to be tipped off our center. If we're authentic and we feel very sure about what we're saying.
Yeah.
That's where the grounding becomes important. Not only figuring out what you believe, but knowing and being able to stand firm in it.
And that first part, actually knowing what we believe, actually is something that's not always immediately obvious.
Yes. So how can we uncover our inner truths? And what can we do to live these more authentically, as you said, Clive? If living authentically matters, we might redouble our efforts to connect with our truths and to let these guide what we say and do. Uncovering inner truths involves self-discovery and intentional action. How might we go about this? Well, here are a few suggestions that might help us get started. Firstly, if you don't already, you might want to make time for quiet reflection and meditation, or spending time in nature without distractions. Being still allows us to connect with our inner selves and gain clarity about our path. Secondly, we might consciously cultivate and practice self-awareness. This means not only identifying our values, beliefs, strengths, weaknesses, emotions, and motivations, but being mindful of how we are living in sync with these in any moment. Tuning in with our bodies by paying attention to physical sensations and emotions matters too, as our bodies often provide signals about what aligns with our authentic selves.
And some life coaches and psychologists recommend creating an affirmation board or writing a letter to yourself to help form and keep in mind a visual representation of everything that resonates with your true self. As I was saying earlier, I sometimes write essays to myself for that purpose and did that on this very subject. Although such approaches might not feel right for everybody. But certainly when it comes to making important decisions, we might want to be sure to check that what we decide is in line with our core values and beliefs, however we go about that. And finally, trying to be open to listen to our inner voice and being sensitive to our intuition. At the same time, if, like us, you're committed to being a compassionate force in the world, as being an intention holder, of course, requires, remember to speak your truth while respecting others' opinions. Sometimes that may be that we suggest an intention that you do not align with, I guess, in which case sit it out.
Yes.
Yep, because you're not going to be able to hold it authentically. We are, of course, likely speaking to the converted here on matters that may be very obvious to many of you and well integrated into daily life. But it can do no harm to remind ourselves of these and to redouble our efforts to put them into practice.
Absolutely. We have to help each other on this, right? We have to be there for each other.
Yep.
So where might we expect to have impact and hone in with our intentions and prayers? And we've barely scratched the surface of what this year's Global Healing Response theme involves. And for example, we've not considered how a lack of authenticity in organizations, the criminal justice system, and government can impact on individuals' mental health. Neither have we reflected upon the importance of openness and commitment in authentic leadership on all the big issues our societies and planet are facing at the moment, such as climate change, inequality, economic disparity, healthcare, racial injustices, discrimination, the global refugee crisis, gender inequality, the potential for abuse and manipulation as advancements in technology such as AI, and continued power of social media have impact. The vulnerability and needs of an aging population in many societies, and of course, ongoing conflict and geopolitical tensions in many parts of the world, just to name a few.
Yeah.
However, we will be exploring many of these in the coming months, especially as we consider GHR's chosen themes for each quarter. To start, here are some initial areas where we might focus our intention and prayers.
Well, in what we do, trying to seek out transparent, accurate, balanced news media reporting and not holding intention for journalists, editors, publishers to be transparent and to give us the facts in what they are reporting as best they're able. And we might also focus attention on action for highlighting and countering false representations in social media, especially given what's been announced by Meta this week. That seemed all the more important.
Leadership in organizations and institutions being moved by compassion and a deeply held commitment to applying the promises they make and mission statements they purport.
Get beyond lessons learned and actually apply the lessons.
Yes. Or thoughts and prayers, as we say in the United States. Beyond the thoughts and prayers.
And we might hold for the conviction of politicians and major influencers on society, particularly on social media again, to be guided by and speak their truths. And also for a widespread recognition of the meaning and importance of being authentic among our societies at large, an increasing commitment of every individual to uncover and live by their truth.
And resolving to focus on connecting with and living by our own beliefs and values, including having courage to put our heads above the parapet in the face of adversity to the level we currently feel able to, but not hiding away, to be compassionate activists.
So this week, for our suggested intention focus, in this year of global healing through deepening and returning to societies and politics and within ourselves, guided by authentic speaking, doing, and being, we suggest remembering the part we can each play in this and holding as our main intention, I resolve to connect with and live by my own beliefs and values. Please join us in holding this.
Absolutely, and more to come, right?
Absolutely.
And we would love to hear from you, our listeners, about how you're becoming more authentic and your ideas. If we share with each other our authenticity, it will grow and you might help someone. If you can share on our Facebook page.
Absolutely. If you feel able, be vulnerable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think we're quite a safe community, aren't we, on our Facebook page, at least at the moment.
Yes.
We keep an eye on that to try and keep it safe as well.
Mm-hmm. That about wraps it up for this episode. Remember, you can connect with us in the Facebook group that we talked about and for live intention holding in Clive's daily Insight Timer offerings and with me in the Labyrinth Activist Network Zoom calls. Details of how to hook up with these are in our show notes. Look out too for our next special topic episode, which we'll be releasing in the next few days. Thank you for listening and for sharing with us in holding intentions and increasing our authenticity for each other. We look forward to connecting again next time. And in the meantime,
thank you. Go well. Stay safe.
And remember, we're more powerful together.
Impact is presented by Ellen Binns and Clive Johnson and produced by Impact Productions. Our theme music is by Chris Collins and our logo artwork is by Auto Classic. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or your favorite podcast provider. We're a non-commercial podcast dedicated to people of any faith tradition or none who yearn for healing in our troubled world. Please pass on the word so others may join us in making an impact. Thank you for listening.